Your eyes are open, you are still asleep. You are upright, the coffee is brewing, the day has technically begun. But there is a kind of sleep that survives the alarm, the autopilot that walks you through the first hour while your mind is still drifting somewhere between the pillow and the phone. You can run an entire day like this. Most people do, most days. This is not about the hour you wake, it is about whether you are actually there when you do. Because being awake, truly awake, awake to your own life instead of sleepwalking through someone else's script, is not automatic. It is a decision, and like every decision that matters, it gets made early, before the day fills up with other people's urgencies and quietly decides for you. A man named Henry David Thoreau once walked away from the world for 2 years to answer one question. He went to live alone in a small cabin by a pond, and he said exactly why. "I went to the woods," he wrote, "because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life." To live deliberately, not by accident, not by default, not by inheriting whatever the day handed him, on purpose. And at the end of all that searching, he left a single line that is really an alarm clock for the soul. "Only that day dawns to which we are awake." Read it slowly. The sun comes up on everyone, but the day only truly begins for the person who is awake to it. For everyone else, the sun rises on a sleepwalker. Thoreau was not talking about insomnia. He was talking about attention, about presence, about whether you meet your morning as a conscious participant or as a passenger. "We must learn," he wrote, "to reawaken and keep ourselves awake, not by caffeine, not by tricks, but by an infinite expectation of the dawn, by treating the new day as something worth being present for." And here is the harder half, the part that decides what you are awake for, because you can be wide awake and still be living entirely on borrowed instructions. Wide awake to the notifications, the expectations, the opinions of people who will never live your life for you. Ralph Waldo Emerson saw this 2 centuries ago and wrote the antidote in 2 words. "Trust thyself," he said. "Every heart vibrates to that iron string." The first signal of the morning is not the phone. It is the quiet voice that knows what actually matters to you before the noise arrives to drown it out. Emerson knew how rare that is. "It is easy," he wrote, "to live by the world's opinion. It is easy alone to live by your own. But the rare person keeps the independence of his own mind even in the middle of the crowd. That independence is not built at noon, surrounded by demands. It is set now in the quiet before the crowd wakes up." So the morning asks you 2 things at once. Are you awake, and awake to whose life? Your answer is the whole day in miniature. Here is what changes when you take this seriously. You stop letting the first input choose your state. The sleepwalker reaches for the phone and lets the feed decide what he thinks and feels before he has had a single thought of his own. The awake person takes the first minutes back and meets himself before he meets the world. You start living the day on purpose, which is a small and constant act of courage. It is easier to drift. Drifting asks nothing of you. To live deliberately means choosing, again and again, what deserves your attention and being willing to disappoint people whose plan for your day is not your plan. And you stop confusing motion with presence. You can be busy all day and absent the entire time. Awake is not the same as active. Awake is the writer who is actually in the sentence, the leader actually in the room, the person actually in their own life instead of watching it go by. You will not stay perfectly awake. No one does. The mind drifts back towards sleep 100 times a day. The discipline is not to never drift. It is to notice and return, to keep, as Thoreau said, the infinite expectation of the dawn. So wake up the real kind, out loud if it helps. I am awake, and I am awake to my own life. I live this day deliberately, not by default. I meet myself before I meet the world. I will not hand my first thoughts to the feed. I trust the quiet voice that knows what matters. I keep my own mind, even inside the crowd. When I drift, I notice and I return. I begin awake. That is the practice, not a louder alarm, a decision to actually be here in your own life deliberately, starting now. If this woke you up a little, stay with this channel. Every morning, 1 disciplined hour to begin. And tonight, the other side of the same truth. Tonight you learn how the dark quietly puts you back together, how the night itself restores the person the day wore down. Come back this evening for it. Begin disciplined and reflective. Now wake up for real, go.